Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, ma'am.
My screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now today we will start the second part of the support vector machine, that is vector regression. Now if you look at this two diagram, now by explaining all these diagrams together, I'm going to explain the details of this support vector regression. So the mechanism of support vector regression is not same as support vector machine based classification. So here we have lots more thing to discuss. So now let's start with this diagram first. So who has invented this support vector regression concept? It is invented by a person who is named as Vladimir Vapnik. VAPNIK. This is Vladimir Vapnik. So this is the person who has invented this support vector regression. Now let's talk about the technical details. See, here we have two plots. In order to compare this SVR with the simple linear regression, it will really help you to understand the detail inside of this concept. So that's why I'm comparing this concept with the simple linear regression. Now, in the left, see here. We have some, say, random dots. So these are the random dots that are available in this graph. So the same thing I have copied over here with some different representation. So both plots are identical, but their explanations are completely different. So in left, we have applied over here simple linear regression with a method which is known as ordinary least square method. So whenever we are talking about simple linear regression, you have to keep in mind that the technique or the method that we use for linear regression is known as ordinary least square method, and this is the formula, right? And now it is applied to find this line. So this line is, I think, visible to you all. Why this formula is used? This formula is used to find out this regression line. That is in the left. So basically here we want to minimize the distance between the actual value known as y and y hat. This is the actual value which is known as y, and this is your y hat. So main aim is to minimize the distance between y and y hat. So we take a difference. See the formula, we take a difference and we have squared it and try to minimize it. So that's why we have sum y minus y hat square, which tends to minimum. So now try to understand the concept of regression over here. So essentially what we are doing, we are minimizing the error to have a line with minimum error possible. So whichever line it is depicted over here, the distance between the point and the line, we are going to minimize them. And minimizing them means we are basically minimizing the error as much as possible. Now the same concept, using the same concept, I am applying over here. So this is our topic of discussion, that what we are going to discuss today. So how does support vector regression model works? So now let's have a look on this right side diagram. So in this diagram you will see a tube. So this is a tube, right? Instead of a single line we have a tube, and here you have a regression line in the middle. So this is the regression line that I am talking about, and this yellow portion is a tube. Now we have to understand what is the purpose of this yellow tube. So this is the main concept. Now pay attention to this situation. So this tube has a width epsilon. Now if you carefully look at this diagram, this is the width of the tube, and this width is depicted by epsilon, and it is measured vertically along the x2 axis. So this is the vertical axis x2, and see this epsilon is measured along the x2 axis. So they are basically perpendicular to the tube. So this tube is known as epsilon insensitive tube. So here the first point that you have to remember whenever we are talking about support vector regression, we always start with the comparison of support vector regression with the normal regression. Normal regression means linear regression, and linear regression uses a formula which is known as ordinary least square method formula, where we want to minimize this distance, the distance between the point and the regression line. Lesser the distance, lesser the error will be, right? But in case of support vector regression, though it is also a regression and we have one regression line, first what we will do, we will create one tube and we will take one value epsilon, which is termed as width of the tube and which is drawn perpendicular to this x2 axis. That's why whatever concept I am going to apply over here, it is known as epsilon insensitive tube. So here we have a line and here we have a tube. So this is the first point you have to keep in mind. It means that any point in the data set that fall inside the tube, see, inside the tube we have many points, so they will be disregarding the error. So basically means this tube can be think as a margin of error. See here, whatever points we have inside the tube and whatever error we have, means the distance between the line and the plot, we will disregard this error. So basically what I mean to say is that what is the definition of a tube? Conceptually the definition of a tube is, though there is some distance between the point and the regression line over here, still we will not consider this error, we will disregard this error. So here the point is, if there exists any point that falls inside the tube and if there exists any error between the regression line and the plot, so at that point of time we will not consider those errors. This is the first point. So that's why the definition of the tube means it's a kind of marginal error that we are considering. Or we can say that the error that we are having inside the tube, we are allowing this error, right, for our model to have this one. Now we are not caring about the error over here. So any discrepancy or any distance between the point inside the tube and the regression line, we don't care about this error. So this is the primary factor, or you can say that this is the key factor behind this SVR concept. So This is the epsilon insensitive tube concept, and whatever falls inside its epsilon insensitive tube, that error cannot be considered. Now, support vector regression gives little bit of buffer in our model, we can say. Means whatever error we are disregarding over here, because we are acquiring some kind of buffer, and at the same time the points we have outside this epsilon insensitive tube, for them we do care about the error. So whenever you are considering a support vector regression, you are considering one tube, and if you are having any point inside this tube, whichever distance you have from the point with the regression line, we are not considering it. However, whichever points we have outside this tube, and we are only considering the error of those points only. Here, now for the points which exist outside the tube, the error will be measured among the distance between the tube and the point. So try to understand the main concept. Here error means the distance between the point and the regression line. However, for SVR, whatever epsilon insensitive tube we are having and whatever point we are having outside this tube, the distance of error means the distance between the point and the outer portion of the tube. This is the measured error. So this distance is considered as error, not this distance. So between the point and the regression line, this is not the concept of error. But in case of linear regression, the error means this length. So this thing you have to keep in mind. So whichever point falls outside this tube, the distance between the point and the outer boundary of the tube is considered as error, not the trend line itself. Now we have to understand the point which falls outside this tube, they have some names, and those points are known as C star, means epsilon star, and this kind of values are known as slack variables, right? So basically these Z, they are actually known as slack variables. So what is the definition finally we are talking about? So we care about this slack variable distances. So the primary concept of support vector machine is whatever slack variables we are having, the distance between the slack variable and the outer boundary of the tube is known as the actual least square error distance. So here ordinary least square distance is not considered. Therefore, whatever concept I have explained, this is depicted with this formula. So in case of normal regression mechanism, the formula is simple. However, in case of support vector regression, we have to minimize the error. This concept is same, but here we have the concept of slack variables. So that's why this formula is not so simple just as ordinary least square method. So up to this discussion, now we know that what is support vector machine. See, support vector machine was a supervised learning mechanism. So definitely support vector regression is also known as supervised learning algorithm. And why it is used? So support vector regression, the supervised learning algorithm, is used to predict the discrete values. Now this thing you have to keep in mind. So SVR uses simple principle of support vector machine, and the basic idea behind this SVR is to find the best fit line. Again, the same concept that we have used in support vector machine, that we have to find the best hyperplane or the best fit line. So in SVR, the best fit line is basically a hyperplane that has the minimum number of points. So here I want to tell you one point. Unlike other regression models that try to minimize the error between the real and the predicted value, like this y and y hat, the SVR tries to fit the best line within a threshold value. Now, what is this threshold value? This threshold value is the distance between the hyperplane and the boundary line of the tube. So, while explaining this support vector regression, I have talked about this tube, and I have already talked about we are not considering the error for the points which falls inside the tube. So whichever error we are not considering, means we are allowing that much error to happen in our modeling. So this value is known as threshold value. So concept of threshold value is already there in case of support vector regression. So linear SVR, so whenever we are talking about linear support vector regression, it provides faster implementation than normal support vector regression, but it only considers a linear kernel. So again, whenever we are talking about support vector machine, whether for classification and regression, the kernel concept will be there. So what is the definition of linear support vector regression? The support vector regression mechanism which uses a linear kernel, then it is known as linear support vector regression. And always linear support vector regression always provides a faster implementation than other model. So the model produced by support vector regression depends only on a subset of training dataset. Again, the same concept. So whichever dataset we have considered for training, this support vector regression will consider some part of the given dataset. That is, the subset of the training dataset will be considered. And also, whatever formula it is depicted over here, it is known as cost function. So due to the existence of this cost function, whose prediction will be always closest to their target. Means, what is our concept? See, always cost function ignores the samples whose prediction is close to their target. Means, whichever values are close to their target value, cost function never considered them because they are closest to their target value, so they are already fine. So cost function always ignores that kind of values. So this is another concept that is implemented by this support vector regression. So basically here, effectively any point on this plot, these are eventually known as vectors. Just like previous discussion, I have already considered that whatever points we are considering, they are known as vectors. Similarly, whatever points are visible over here in this 2D space, they are known as vectors. And the points that are outside the tube, they are known as support vectors. So now here, what is the difference between support vector machine concept? In case of support vector machine concept, see, whenever we have, say, two different sets of value and we have one hyperplane, whichever values are distant from their actual group. See, this point is far away from its group and this point is far away from its group. So these 2 points are known as support vector. Whereas in this case, which one is the support vector? I can say that the points that are outside this tube. In one word, slack variables are basically known as support vector here. So because of their basically the component which exists outside the tube, means they are supporting the structure of the formation of the tube. So how this structure of this tube will look like, it is totally dependent on the orientation of these points. So that's why these points that belongs to the external part of this tube are known as support vector. So this is the basic concept of support vector regression. So what is the conclusion of today's discussion? See, in our discussion, we have some important points. That is, first, support vector regression differs with linear regression in the formula of the cost function. So why this formula of this cost function is different? Because it's an ordinary least square error where the actual value and the predicted value, and the difference between these two is known as error. However, for support vector regression, the error is something, the difference between the slack variable and the outer part of the tube. So this is the main concept, but both the mechanism tries to minimize this error, this distance. And whenever we are talking about cost function, the extreme means this is one of the very good property of this cost function. If we have any vector whose value is very near to its actual value, they will disregard these vectors. So they will not consider those values. So definitely it will speed up the process. And generally SVR uses linear kernel, and linear kernel are very much faster to implement. So in one word, we can say that the concept of thresholding. What is this thresholding concept? The error that falls inside the tube, which errors are disregarded by this SVR, are known as thresholds value. So basically, support vector regression exploits all the concept of thresholding, the concept of slack variables with the help of one epsilon insensitive tube. And this is the basic mechanism of support vector regression. Now, do you have any question? You can ask me. Then I will go to the implementation details. Means the theoretical part is clear. Why it is different than linear regression?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, if anyone asks you this question, that is, what is the importance of SVR in the context of error minimizing? So this is the question. Means the error calculation part is completely different than the linear regression. So by comparing these two, we have already got the idea behind the linear regression, right? But I can ask you one question. Can I tell these points as vectors? Whatever points we have in the left hand side, can I call these points as vectors? Or we call it just a data point? Any idea?
Ma'am, I think we can.
Actually, any data point which are on the 2D plot, so we can call them vectors. But generally
Yes.
we don't use this term whenever we are not using the support vector machine concept, because support vector machine concept, we have two concepts, support vectors and vectors. So now my question is, here which one is the support vector? Now if you in the interview, if anyone asks you the question in this diagram, right hand side diagram, which one is vector and which one is support vector and why? Can anyone answer this one? In the right hand side, which one is vector and which one is support vector? Can anyone answer this question? Which one is the vector and which one is the support vector over here? It's an open question because these parts are very confusing. Yes, here, tell me. Don't know why my pen is not working. Can anyone answer this question? Am I audible to you all?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So which one is the vector and which one is the support vector? Don't know why pen is not working right now. Yes, tell me. No, what happened? Yes, tell me. No idea. See, whenever I'm talking about any plot, right? Just a minute, I don't know why my pen is not working. Yes, it is working. So, whenever I'm talking about support vector regression, see, we have two kinds of points. This thing you have to keep in mind. We have one regression line and we have one tube, right? So here, whatever points are inside the tube and whatever points are outside the tube, both are vectors. But whichever points are outside the tube means I'm talking about the slack variables. So presence of this slack variables is basically defines the structure or orientation of this tube. So they are basically supporting the structure of the tube. So slack variables are known as support vectors. Means slack variables is equal to support vectors. And what are slack variables? Slack variables are those which are the points which exist outside the epsilon insensitive tube. So this is the concept of support vector over here, right? So now I am telling you the simple description of support vector regression. Means what are the different steps that we have to follow. See, this algorithm will follow the basic steps. Means first we have to import libraries. It is just as previous coding, that is we need NumPy, Matplotlib and Pandas library. After that, we need to import the dataset. So how to import the dataset? We know that, and we have several datasets. But I will distribute some of the new dataset that I have already downloaded. You can use it for the research. Now, what is the point number 3? So here, this is not a 3-part. You can say that while importing dataset, you have 2 activities. I think you know what is that activity. Here we can perform the data analysis also. See, this is not the part of this algorithm, but we know that whenever we are importing any data set, we have to understand the data set. So for that purpose, we can do this one. But now the third step is very much important. The third step is known as feature scaling, right? So this is the one of the most important concept that exists over here. Feature scaling means most of the data that are available usually are of varying ranges, and they have different kinds of magnitude. So it will make a model very much difficult to learn. See, what is the purpose of this data set? The purpose of this dataset is by extracting the data from this dataset, our machine learning model will learn. But if you consider a particular dataset, you will find that we have different kinds of features, and all the features are having different units, different magnitudes. So it will be very difficult for a machine learning model to learn. So thus, the range of the data needs to be normalized to a smaller range, which enables the model to become more accurate while training process. So this is the concept of feature scaling. So if feature scaling does not exist, then your machine learning model will not be able to train properly. So for a good training process, you need the concept of feature scaling. And in order to perform feature scaling, which library you need? You need sklearn library. So in sklearn library, you have pre-processing, this one from sklearn. From pre-processing, import, you have standard scaler. So this is the concept, standard scaler concept, which is used for feature scaling. So standard scaler is nothing that we have to call a function. So basically we will take some variable, and using this variable we will just call the standard scaler function, right? So feature scaling is very much important, and here I will also tell you one important point about the feature, but later on. So after importing the library, after importing the data set, the most important part is, in order to change the data set into the smaller range, in order to make our model learn properly, we will perform feature scaling. So standard scaler based feature scaling is the most common one, but other feature scaling mechanisms are also there. I will talk about that. So this is the third point. So in general, if I talk about feature scaling, so feature scaling is mostly performed internally in most of the common regression and classification model. You don't have to think about it. And support vector machine is not a common, it's not commonly used for any kind of classification. Regression means we have to perform some activity on some discrete value. So here we always have to normalize the data into some limited range. So here my point is, whenever you are using support vector regression, explicitly you have to write the feature scaling code so that you can normalize your data into some limited range value. So that's why here feature scaling is mandatory. Now we will talk about step number 4. In the step number 4, we have to train the support vector regression model. So this is a training process, and this training process is same as previous. So what was that? In order to train this model, again we have to take sklearn. So the model name is sklearn dot model underscore selection, and we have to import what? We have to import train test split. And how many variables we need? We need 4 variables, because this is our actual data set, and this is our number of features, and this is our class level. So in case of training, we will have training feature and training class level, and in testing we have testing feature and testing class level. So always here we have 4 variables: x train, x test, y train, y test, and then we have to consider the percentage, the split. So you can consider 0.2, means you can consider test size is equal to 0.2. It means we are considering 80% and 20% split. Anyways, this is a concept of training. So after training the support vector regression model, means training the support vector regression model on the training set, then what is the 5th step? In the 5th step, you have to train the support vector regression model on the training set, and then afterwards you have to perform prediction. Prediction means you have to carry out the testing results, means the test set results. And then what is the final step? The final step is the finding the accuracy, means you have to compare the test set with the predicted value. That we have already done. But this is not our main topic of discussion. I will discuss this entire process in details later. But we have one hidden logic always. So this logic I have missed out whenever I have defined some of the machine learning mechanism. So let's consider about that situation. So this is the most important thing that we have to always keep in mind. So what is this concept? See, just a minute. I think this dataset is visible to you. So I want to open another dataset. See, this dataset is known as wine dataset, right? And what is the purpose of this dataset? See, we have some feature values like fixed acidity, volatile acidity. This is citric acid, and we have lots more pH value, sulfate value, alcohol, and all these are known as features, right? And we have the class level. Class level means here we have some value 6, 5, 7. So this assures the quality. So all belongs to the white wine quality. So by this, using this data set, we can classify wine, right? Additionally, we have another data set which is a cancer tumor data set. Means if a particular tumor is cancerous or not, this data set contains the feature of the cancer tumor. Means see, we have several features over here. Means all these features are important in order to find whether a particular tumor is cancerous or not. But what is our topic of discussion? So I was talking about feature scaling, right? So the concept of feature is very much important. So before considering feature scaling, we have to know one detail that is known as correlation analysis among the features. Now this portion is very much important. See, first thing you have to make a clear idea that in any data set you have two divisions. One is the predictor division, means features which are used to perform classification or regression, and there is one target column. Target column means which contains the classification value, right? Now, so predictors are the features and we have one target column. So two separation. Now let's talk about correlation, which is a very, very important thing. So what is correlation? See, correlation means comparing two variables with two or more variables. Means, say, what is variables? So here consider columns as variables, right? Now say one situation. Say we have fixed acidity feature and volatile acidity feature. So these are the two variables. And now say I want to perform correlation analysis. Correlation analysis is nothing but you have to call a function CORR that I have already discussed while defining data analysis. But see, there is one important concept here. So whenever you are comparing two features, means correlation of two features, then you will get one value. So for an example, say, please pay attention to this. Now say we have one simple data set where we have multiple features and one target value. Now say I am finding the correlation value between F1 and F2 feature. And say one situation I am finding correlation between F1 and target feature. So two cases I am considering. Now what is correlation? So if I call this correlation function on the data frame, then it will give me some output in terms of numbers. So what numbers we can expect? If I get value as 1, means two variables are highly correlated, means maximum correlation. So we always expect correlation which is near about 1. So the threshold value is 0.5. Any value which is greater than 0.5 is a good correlation. So this definition you will get in everywhere. But there is one biggest twist over here. See, say I have one feature, like if you are considering Cetosine, Versicolor, Virginica, this kind of Irish data set, say I have one feature, say petal length and say petal width, say F1 and F2. Say I am just finding the correlation value between an F1 and F2 and I am getting the correlation value as say 0.85. It means it's a very good correlation. Now what is my verdict over here? This is the first question. And the second question is, say I am finding the correlation between the variety, means the class level, variety of the feature, and there is one predictor, that is F1, and I am getting correlation as say 0.75. Say, so what is the analysis we have to understand? See, whenever you are getting very high correlation between the predictors, between the features, it is a very bad thing. It is a very bad thing means if correlation is high between the features, means one feature can be predicted with the use of another feature. It means using both the feature which are highly correlated, they are redundant in nature. Means if I use both the features in order to classify something, it is a rather mistake, because they are duplicate, they are redundant values. I am just increasing the dimension of my data set. So the first point you have to remember, high correlation between predictors are bad thing. It will create redundancy. So what is the solution? If you find this kind of situation, you have to drop any one of the feature. However, if you find the predictor and the target column and their correlation is more than 0.5, it means it's definitely a good correlation. It means in order to classify this target value, or in order to predict this target value, this F1 feature is very much important. Means we cannot avoid this F1 feature. So whenever I am talking about correlation, by the definition of the correlation, you cannot understand this. Correlation means if we have good value of correlation greater than 0.5 means it is a good thing. No. Related features are not acceptable. Related feature means one feature can take place of another feature. Means whatever prediction I am going to do, this can happen with the help of another feature. So any one of the feature we should keep. So high correlated features are not acceptable. However, high correlated target value and the features, they are acceptable. So what should be our notion? So whenever we are dealing with large data set, means data set with large number of features, you don't have to calculate this correlation value for all the features. Our main target will be, we have to find out the correlation value of each feature with the target variable, and always our intention will be whichever features are very much, means whichever features are providing high correlation value with the target, we will keep those features. Then on the next hand side, what we will do, then we will also compare the correlation value between the features, and if we have highly correlated features, we will drop any one of the features. So what do you mean by this correlation matrix? Now see here, that's why whenever, see, importing dataset means we know that we will take one variable and here we will read the CSV file, right? So whatever CSV file we are reading, it will be held by this variable D. So variable D is basically holding the data frame, right? And how this correlation function will work, you have to write just the name of this variable .corr function. So as a output, what you can see, so as a output you will get one square matrix. Now see what is the dimension of the square matrix. See, if you have two feature and one target, then the matrix will look like F1, F2, T, F1, F2 and T. So this is how the correlation matrix will look like. And if you see the diagonals, always you will get 1. Means I am comparing this feature with respect to the same feature, F1 versus F1. So always it will give you the high correlation. F2 versus F2, target versus target. So don't consider this diagonal part. Now see here. See, if you get a value over here 0.8, it means what? The correlation between F1 and F2 feature is 0.8. So what is F1 and F2? F1 and F2 are the predictors and they are showing very high correlation, means they are redundant in nature. So we cannot keep both the features at a time. We have to remove any one of them. However, if I get high correlation value over, means between F1 and the target means the class level. It means in order to find this specific class level, this feature is very much important. So at this point of time, this is one of the significant feature that I have to keep. So here I will drop which one? I will drop F2 from here. Similarly, we have F2 versus F1. Again, we will get some value over here. So this is how your correlation matrix will look like. So whenever I was discussing support vector machine or any other machine learning model, data analysis is important. But which analysis is most important? Correlation analysis. So whenever you are getting this much amount of data, whenever we have this much amount of features available in your data set, so at this point of time, if you want to exploit all the features at a time, what will happen? Dimensionality of the data set will become very large and it will take very long time to train. And due to the existence of redundant features, your machine learning model will not perform better in training phase. So here, after loading the data, just keep in mind that perform correlation analysis, and in Pandas you have to just call the CORR function in order to see the matrix. And that square matrix is so efficient, then at a glance you will be able to understand which features are most significant and which one to discard. So my request is, whatever machine learning model I have discussed so far, and I have provided some of the algorithms also, some of the coding also. Today I am going to share with you this two data set, this cancer tumor data set and this wine data set, and I will share this CSV file with you. So my request is, you can apply all the machine learning models that we have already discussed so far, and before applying all those models, you just have to apply the correlation analysis and see the matrix and try to find out which features are having most weightage in the classification or regression activity. So the task is clear, or the concept of correlation is clear, or do you have any question?
Yes, ma'am. But please, there is a request. If you send that is your video links, because when we will check it once.
Yes, sure. I will upload the playlist again. You will find all the videos. Okay. I will upload it once again. No issues. So this is the most important thing. So in the interview, if the question is asked, that is how to reduce the dimensionality of the data set, fine, we have dimensionality reduction technique, but just like PCA that I have already explained. But before that, you have to keep in mind there is one data analysis technique, that is correlation analysis, which are very much important. And higher correlation is not good always. Higher correlation between features are bad. Higher correlation between feature and the target variable is good and acceptable. So always you have to keep this point in mind. So whenever you are performing any machine learning activity, perform correlation analysis. It will give you a clear picture about everything in your data set. So this is the most important point that I have missed out while discussing data analysis. And I have one more point to discuss, that is, do you have any idea that, this is my question, that can we paste any link, GitHub link for importing dataset directly? Means, can I write any code instead of read CSV? Means what we will do, we will read the CSV file by downloading the file or by importing the file from sklearn. So I have one question, can we give here one GitHub link? Say some dataset is uploaded in the GitHub. Can I use the GitHub link directly to import the dataset? Can anyone try this one? Say we can fetch dataset from Kaggle, we can fetch dataset from UCI, we can fetch dataset from sklearn library. But can we fetch dataset using a link? link from GitHub or any other data repository or project repository. Have you tried this one? Anyone? So there is one answer, that is, whenever you are going to GitHub, if in the GitHub you have any important data source, so what you have to do, you have to copy the link within double quotes. If you copy the link over here while reading the CSV file, the entire dataset will be fetched. So you can try this out. So this, by providing a link in Python for a certain source, you can also fetch the dataset. No need to download the dataset and then you have to set the working directory and something like this. No need to do that. So there are three basic principles of fetching data. First one is from any repository, second one is from sklearn, and third one is you can use the link directly. So try this one. Okay. So what is the task? Just I'm giving you the task, that is, I am just giving you two data set. And see, while sharing the data set, here I am not explaining what you can do with this data set. See this, you just study all the features and try to find out which column is actually the target column. Here I haven't mentioned anything. So here my first question is, only by visualizing the data set, is it possible to find out the purpose of the data and the target variable or target column? Similarly, the same question is there. So whenever I'm talking about wine quality assessment, see, we have a type and we have quality. So you have to find out which column is used for what purpose. Means, can I use this data set for multiple purpose? And the next question will be, can I use this data set for classification, for regression, or for both? So by studying these two data sets, these two data sets are fetched from UCI. You can go and check the data set description also. So my question is, what is the purpose of the data set? Means, is it possible for a particular data set, by using that data set we can perform all prediction, forecasting, classification, regression, everything. So here my question is, by using these two data set, what kind of activity we can perform and what is the accuracy it is providing? Classification, regression, prediction, anything you can do. And you have to focus on this data set also. You have to create a good study on this, because I have already explained that finally I'm going to give you one data set. By using that data set, you have to perform all the algorithms. So this is the data set. It's a cancer tumor data set, and you have to first analyze this data set. So I need a good data analysis on this data set. So after performing the data analysis, then I will ask you the question that what is the purpose of this data set? Means, for what purpose we can use the data set. If it can be used for both prediction, classification, and regression, then I will ask you which suits the best. Obviously you will explain it with terms of accuracy, skill, or precision, anything you can do this one, but this is the thing that I am uploading today. So this week you have to study these two data sets properly, and what kind of data analysis you can perform, this thing you have to perform and solve this one.